Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston, this is Station. We're ready.
Fort Worth Academy, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call Station for a voice check.
Station, this is Fort Worth Academy. How do you hear me?
Fort Worth Academy, we have you loud and clear. Welcome aboard the International Space Station.
Hi, I'm Lauren Parker with the kindergarten through 8th grade students of Fort Worth Academy. We're so excited to talk with you as we celebrate Space Week.
Hi, I'm Blythe from 1st grade. How does it feel to bounce around in space?
Well, it's a lot of fun. In fact, we thought we'd do a little demonstration for you. So as you can see, it's a lot of fun.
Hi, I'm Ellie from 5th grade. What would happen if you tried to play with slime in space?
That is a great question, and I hear that you guys have been making some slime as well. Here in space, there wouldn't be any gravity to pull that slime down in a long tendril, so actually it would probably just ball up in a ball, and if you wanted to slime somebody, you'd actually have to make it like a projectile and fire it at them. So it'd be a little different, but it'd probably still be just as fun.
Hi, I'm Lourdes from 8th grade. What role does the International Space Station play in the process of building a sustained presence on the moon?
Well, as I think you're probably already aware, it is our goal at NASA currently to go back to the moon and eventually go on to Mars. So all that we're doing up here on the International Space Station, a lot of the data and experiments that we've been conducting for decades now are providing us with a wealth of scientific data, especially looking at things like human physiology and medicine, what happens to the body after long-duration spaceflight. We have learned many lessons from this sustained presence that we have up here on the space station. The space station also serves as a sort of proving ground and test bed for other pieces of hardware. One of those important things is life support systems. Of course, life support systems inside the space station, in our spacecraft, even in our spacesuits, are all very relevant to that future exploration as well.
Hi, I'm Kason from 8th grade. What is it like knowing that you have an opportunity few people will have in their lives of living and working in space?
Well, we view it as a great honor, and we view it as our responsibility to share it with others. We know that we're very privileged to be here, and we have a huge team supporting us on the ground in order to enable this to happen. And so we like to do events just like this to reach out and show you the magic of being in space, but also the benefits to people on Earth, as well as our opportunities to explore further in the universe as a result of our experience up here.
Hi, I'm Kai from 5th grade. When you spill something like water on your clothes, do they get wet or does the water just sit on top?
Sounds like another great opportunity for a demonstration of what might happen. So we're making a big ball of water here, and you can see the forces in the water want to stay in a sphere. And it wants to stick to anything it can, to include the straw. We'll make another ball here, and and I'll let it hit my shirt, and you can see exactly what would happen. Just like the water wants to stick to itself, stick to the straw, it also will stick to my shirt.
But it does still get things wet as well. As you can see with Drew, if we squirt him with water, he still gets wet just like he would on the ground. It is interesting, though, some of the fabrics they provide us help us keep clean. So some of the pants, for example, that we have are a little bit more hydrophobic. They repel the water, and so it'll bead up on there, and you can wipe it off if you spill something inadvertently, since we do wear these pants for quite a long time.
Hi, I am Charlie from kindergarten. How have you celebrated holidays and other special events in space?
Sometimes we do like to remind ourselves of our normal life on the ground, even though, as we talked about, we're so lucky to be up here. So it is important for us psychologically, especially on these long duration missions, to recognize those things that we normally do on the ground, like holidays. So we've actually had several holidays together during this mission, some really big ones. We had Thanksgiving together, we had Hanukkah and Christmas up here during the holiday season, and we also had New Year's. So what we did, we gathered together with our crewmates, the three of us, but also our commander, Italian astronaut Luca Parmitano, and two of our Russian colleagues as well, cosmonauts that are up here with us and part of our crew. So we usually gather together and have a great meal together. We spend some time sometimes playing music, talking about, things on the ground. We gave each other presents on Christmas. So we do it much like you do on the ground. It's just even more special up here.
Hi, I'm Ella from 8th grade. How have your previous leadership experiences prepared you for your stay in space?
I love that question because before I came to the International Space Station, and before I was selected as an astronaut, I was and still am an Army officer, where we talk about leadership a lot. But what I've found as an astronaut, the important quality is being a good teammate, which means to be able to move between being a leader and being a follower very readily. On one day, one person may be in charge of it, but the next day somebody else may be in charge, and you need to then fall in and become a follower just the same. And so that's an important quality of a good teammate, is being able to move back and forth through those roles and respect whoever is in charge and their decisions. It's a quality that it takes time to develop, and one of the most important qualities in a good team member.
Hi, I'm Isaac from 1st grade. What made you want to be an astronaut?
Well, when I was even younger than you are, if you can believe it, I first decided that I wanted to be an astronaut. And sometimes I'm not even sure what made me want to be one, because it's just all that I can ever remember wanting to be. I think that I love the idea of exploring my world. I loved playing in the woods. I loved going to the ocean. I loved looking at the night sky. And those things reminded me that there was so much more to see and discover out there in the world. And from there, I just kept pursuing the things that I loved and I was passionate about, and I kept working hard. And eventually I found myself living that dream out and being able to be an astronaut exploring in space.
Hi, I'm Ito from 8th grade. With all the new technology that we have developed since our last missions to the moon, what new experiments will be done and what advances will be made during the Artemis program?
You know, that is a great question in a time when people have noticed, we have been to the moon before, and so you might think, why would we go back? There's so much more to discover there. There's both science that can be done on the moon in terms of planetary science. Like, for example, the moon is almost like the Rosetta Stone of our entire solar system's formation. Within the moon's geology, we can understand how the solar system formed, which informs how our own planet formed and the rest of the planet. So there's a lot of scientific relevance in going back to the moon. But also, it's a stepping stone for going farther into our solar system, like onward to Mars. And in Mars, we can discover and answer really huge questions, such as, is there life elsewhere outside of Earth? And things like that that really mean a lot to all of humanity. So there's multiple reasons that we are heading back to the moon, and we're doing so soon and to stay.
Hi, I'm Mahan from 3rd grade. What does your daily schedule look like, and what do you do in your free time?
Well, that's an interesting question because, you know, we are up here for a long period of time, and our time up here is very precious, and there's a lot invested in our time, and so every moment is scheduled. But our day looks probably very much like a day on Earth in terms of we still need to sleep and we still need to eat, and we spend time in our day exercising. But we also spend a fair amount of our time doing maintenance of the space station. In fact, just yesterday we had to do, Jessica and Christina were on a spacewalk where they were doing maintenance of the space station outside the space station in space suits. And so we have had a couple of spacewalks during our time up here on board. And then we're also conducting scientific experiments on a daily basis. We always have science that we need to tend to, and we're running the experiments for scientists on the ground. So our days stay very packed. They're very full. Every hour is accounted for.
Hi, I'm Afif from 2nd grade. How do you use robots on the International Space Station?
Well, one of the most important pieces of robotic hardware that we have up here on the International Space Station is the Canadarm, or the robotic arm that's on the outside of the space station. It's this really large robotic arm that can be moved around to help people on spacewalks. So, for example, in the spacewalk that Drew mentioned yesterday, the arm was actually holding some batteries for us that Christina and I were getting and moving from one location to the next, basically in order to upgrade the batteries for the space station, going from an older technology to new lithium-ion batteries, just like you use in all your devices on the ground. Sometimes the robotic arm moves astronauts as well outside, and sometimes it moves things around even without us on it, just moving different pieces of hardware, even in the beginning during the construction of the space station, moving entire modules around in order to configure things on the International Space Station. So that's probably the biggest, maybe not your conventional idea of a robot, but we have had some other robots on the space station too. We had Robonaut, who was up here previously and will be coming up here again to demonstrate some other applications that do have relevancy to future exploration as well. We have a small robot just right over here, Astrobi, that we'll bring off the wall here. And have you guys ever done? I actually haven't participated in the Astrobi experiments, but Christina might be able to tell a little bit about that.
Yes, these are called our Astrobee robots, and they are going to be used autonomously to perform little tasks around station. For example, finding items that people need to gather, taking pictures of different configurations, and other tasks like that. And the really neat thing about this robot is that it can find its way around actually by using cameras in real time, and it has the entire station mapped out so it can tell where it is and where it needs to go and just work on its own. So it's been really fun bringing these robots into stations since I've been here.
Hi, I'm Alex from 7th grade. What is an interesting experiment you have worked on?
I'll tell you about one experiment that Jessica and I do together. It's called fluid shifts, which studies how the fluids in our bodies, to include our blood, change how they flow and how they operate inside our bodies in the absence of gravity. And it's an interesting experiment because it also involves our Russian colleagues as well, and we use a device called Chibis, which tries to simulate the effects of gravity by using vacuum to suck the blood from our upper body down into our lower body, just like it would on Earth if you had gravity. We also use ultrasound in this experiment. Ultrasound devices uses sound waves to look at our hearts and the vessels in our necks, and allows us to see how the fluid and the blood flow changes as a result of living in microgravity for a long period of time.
Hi, I'm Ashley from 4th grade. How do you stay connected to your family and friends from the International Space Station?
Well, it's actually pretty easy on the International Space Station. It will be more challenging when we go to further destinations like Mars. But up here, we have programs on our laptop computers, much like you do on the ground. It functions a bit like Skype would. So we can use a program on our computer to call down to anybody's cell phone. So we could go right now and dial any of you up on this laptop. We also have some video conferencing software, kind of like a FaceTime or Skype again, that allows us to do that on video. So we have weekly family conferences with our loved ones on the ground so that we can not only hear their voices but also see their faces.
Hi, I'm Emma from 6th grade. What training did you receive to effectively work with a variety of different cultures and languages in space?
That's a great question, because one of the best things about the International Space Station is international cooperation between multiple countries, part of the program. And as we mentioned earlier, right now we have an Italian, 3 Americans, and 2 Russians on board. And so it's very important to understand each other's cultures. When we were selected as astronauts, we immediately began learning the Russian language, because on board the International Space Station, we speak Russian or English. Those are the official languages, despite what your native language may be. And that's just one of many examples of how we try to come together in a common understanding, but a mutual respect for one another. And it will be one of the greatest legacies of the International Space Station program is the international cooperation, something that we will carry forward with us into the Artemis program as we return to the surface of the moon by 2024.
Hi, I'm Michael from 7th grade. Was there a time you thought you could not complete a challenge, and how did you overcome that?
You know, there have been so many instances throughout the last 6 to 7 years since I was selected to become an astronaut where I was faced with something that at first I thought was an insurmountable challenge. From the training we first got, the day we walked through the door, through the flight training to get here, through all of the incredible and dynamic events that we get to do up here. So that included from the beginning, for me, learning how to be a pilot of a high-performance aircraft, all the way through flight training where I first started learning how to be a co-pilot in a Soyuz spaceship, and then up here doing several EVAs or spacewalks within the course of a mission. All those things at first seemed like they were impossible. It seemed like a mountain of things to do in front of me that I might never ever accomplish. And I think the trick is just taking it one chunk at a time, recognizing that step by step you can achieve these huge goals and very, very difficult challenges. It involves grit. It involves accepting failure sometimes, and it involves recognizing that you do have the strength to overcome the challenges no matter what they are. So I would say all of those challenges sort of put together really defined the last several years, probably for all of us. In fact, overcoming things that seemed at first like you couldn't is kind of the name of the game in astronaut training and in being on board the International Space Station. But that's what makes it so fulfilling and so meaningful.
Hi, I'm Electra from 1st grade. How do you know when to sleep and when to wake up in space?
Well, sleep is very important to me. It's one of my favorite things to do, down on the ground and up here. And we follow the same sort of schedules. Again, you know, it is interesting because we don't have the circadian rhythms of the sun. You know, we don't have the same number of hours of consistent light and darkness that we use for those cues on the ground. But we do try to maintain some of that for example, with our lights, we have these newer light systems which have different intensities. So in the morning, we have what's called a phase shift, have a really bright light to wake us up. And then as we progress through the day, we decrease that intensity that simulates what the sunlight would be like on the ground. Otherwise, we use the same things you do on the ground. We use clocks. We use alarm clocks. I know I, for one, would never wake up on my own in time if it weren't for an alarm clock. So all the same practices you guys are using on the ground as well.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. We've really enjoyed spending this time with you.
Thank you to Fort Worth Academy. It was a pleasure to be with you.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes our event as we count down to 20 continuous years of humans living and working on the International Space Station.
Thank you to all the participants from Fort Worth Academy. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.